Welcome to Punching In, a series of roundtable discussions by musicians to share ideas about workflow and collaboration.
The next topic I just want to talk about is like stack harmonies, like, you know, what the Supremes were doing. And the idea, I think a lot of vocal groups back in the 60s and 70s were doing this, where you'd have one person on top, lead in the middle, one person or two people on the bottom, and lead would have to stand out. What are the hardships and the responsibilities of the person on top of the melody to make sure they're not pulling the ear to that note instead of the melody note?
In my experience, everybody just loves to hear a high singer. No offense to the high singers out there. So it's kind of hard anyway, because when you have something, but again, it's just like listening, the ear, just knowing. One of my favorite vocal groups that I think does it the best is the Clark sisters, where you have Karen Clark, who is one of the most powerful and soaring sopranos ever. But when all four of them sing together, it's like, no, it's like one person singing four parts. It's everybody knows how to give and take. And that also is your own personal relationship with your voice, to know how and when to put the gas and when, back off a little bit, and just that in the moment listening and connectedness and being able to look at each other and feed off of each other. Singing is such a crazy energy exchange. Music in and of itself is. So yeah, you just got to be open and know what's important. Right. Understand your role in what it is that you're doing, even if it is some kind of complex, crazy whatever. Understand that your part is no more important than the melody or the tenor or the bass, and they're all coming together to make one sound, as opposed to I'm a soprano.
I think being self-aware of your tonal quality, because there are some singers that automatically just sound louder even if they're singing the same volume as you, because they have a brighter sound to their voice. So it's just going to pop right out. I'm a lower alto, so I typically have to give it a little bit more gas than I would even naturally want to do just to get the sound out. So I think it's just being aware of like what the gift you have sounds like and adjusting and not taking it personally, because you have to like serve the same purpose, and in group singing you're not the artist. So knowing how to manipulate your sound to just kind of like blend properly.
I've been taught that you want to picture it like a cone, and the highest harmony should just sit right there like a little bell. And because it's already high, it's going to stand out more. So you just want it to just sit there like a pure little crisp bell. And unless you're really belting something, depending on the style of the music, of course, but always be checking that you're not overpowering the melody.
Even when I'm recording my own vocals for my own projects, I don't want to compete with my own melody, and even when I sing my highs, I sing all my own background vocals on records. And yeah, it's the same scenario. I feel like I want the highest note to just be like a bell just sitting on top. And like, I'm not trying to compete with myself, because I still want my lead to be the star. Right. It's just and even when I'm stacking vocals, when I'm stacking melodies on top of it, I still like, I want it to sound so like almost perfectly matching, but not even sometimes, because I still want it to sound like a background vocal, because I don't want to have that same exact intonation and the same exact vibrato as my leads, because that doesn't really give it any color.
And I think you guys have a larger issue with those Andrews Sisters review bands, because the Andrews Sisters parts, every phrase is hopping to a different girl singing the melody. It's looking at some of those takedowns, it's kind of mind-blowing how frequently that happens and how they're each ducking out of each other's way in order to make room for the other.
Yeah, it's awesome. They're such cool arrangements.
Yeah.
There's some trading of the melody. The lead mostly has the melody, but the stack isn't usually parallel. Like the part I get to sing, which is one of the most fun things in the entire world, jumps up above and below the melody all the time. So in that group, as well as like I've sung tenor and baritone in barbershop quartets, you really have to be aware of where your note is fitting in the chord and what its importance is at that moment. Like, is this something that needs to be blended back, or is this something that is like a really like pretty harmony that is going to be pleasing to the listener? Like a lot of the cross harmony stuff, you want to blend that back. You want to be filling right in. You don't want anybody to be able to like follow you, you know, because it wouldn't even sound like the song you're used to hearing.
I love my high harmonies. I love the sopranos, and I just love arranging really, really high harmonies sometimes. I give them a hard time, but I think it all depends like on the style of what you're singing. I can like name an example. Like I feel like "Free Your Mind" by En Vogue, like that for sure. Like that requires everyone to kind of be like not overpowering, but like almost everyone has to be on the same equal volume, like the "Free Your Mind," like that part. But there are definitely a lot more like instances where the melody has to stand out, and I feel like it's just a matter of like practicing your placement and where the tone is. And I feel like a lot of the sopranos that I worked with, they have this really like versatile like placements where they could hit it in their mix or they could hit it in their chest voice, and it's just a matter of like if you want to use your chest voice there, it would serve the whole ensemble better if you just sang that high part with your mix and different levels of your mix volumes.
Right. We're going to get into a lot of blending with the melody right now, because I want to talk about pure melodic doubling. Like if you are choosing in the moment to double a phrase that the lead is doing, I mean, obviously there may be riffs, there may be all kinds of different things you have to deal with in that scenario. How are you guys just running it enough times where you are agreeing with each other?
I mean, you've seen it. You've seen it. You've seen how it goes.
In vans.
Yeah, in the back of a van. We're talking about singing, by the way. Yeah, it really is just a matter of, I feel like I just keep saying the same thing, but yeah, just listening. It's so much more about listening to what's happening around you, so that you know. And if in a blend, like if you can hear yourself clearly over everybody else, then you ain't blended. And then also there is a such thing as just letting go. Sometimes the instinct is to hold back and it is to be like, ooh, but sometimes letting go and going for it will get you the result that you're looking for too. It all just depends on the intention. Like if we're singing "Bye" with a little help from my friends, we're not whispering that. No, we're screaming that. Like, and we're gonna go for it. Yeah. It's all unison. It's all there. And yeah, we're listening. We're blending, but we're also letting go, because that's the intention of said line, and that is such a huge part of a successful vocal, is to not get caught up in here.
Yeah,
because we're not singing with our skulls. We're literally singing from our mouths. Like it has to be a full experience. And I have been a victim of getting caught up on being so technical that I'm just not doing the thing. And trust your instincts, especially in those live situations where it's like you're really counting on it in the moment. Yeah. Like if you're doing a live recording, if you're doing some sort of all these Zoom things where it's like, okay, I got to make sure this is right. Right. There is an element of like not overthinking it, right? Because thoughts show up vocally, right? You can just kind of hear somebody thinking as they're singing. That's a really weird experience, but you really do. It's like a real time conversation. So yeah, there's a huge power in just singing, just doing your thing. Yeah.
And it depends on who you're with, you know. If everybody is thinking about this stuff and listening and blending, then you're kind of going to meet at a common place. But sometimes you're with singers who they're just doing their thing and you have to sing around them. Yeah. And, you know, and sometimes that means you have to establish the tone and hope that they'll fall in. Or sometimes it means they are not listening, they're establishing the tone, and you've got to do what they're doing, or it will not sound, you know, blended. So it's always just kind of gauging what's going on and doing your best to combine the different types of voices. You know, certain voices will sound great together automatically. They're, you know, similar tone and timbre.
Yep.
You know, other ones, it's a real hard match, and you've got to work a lot harder.
Yeah.
So it just depends.
That's like the greatest advice for being a background singer, or just in any kind of group singing as well. I just think it's, sometimes you have to do a little bit of a heavy lifting with establishing the tone. I think that's such good advice. I
think sometimes if it really doesn't work, I think you got to try like switching out parts. We've done that before with some people that I've sung with, where like some people's voices and tones are just much heavier than the others, and you just kind of need to switch out parts until you find like a better blend. Sometimes even though someone can sing maybe higher than you, but their voice is much heavier than the person singing below them. Sometimes if you switch that out and the person on top has a lighter, brighter sound, then it sounds much better. So it's just kind of switching it out and just kind of seeing like what works and what doesn't work.
I'm a baritone. I'm gonna take the low note all day, but sometimes it just works better if I'm flipped and floaty, but you really don't. Or mixing, you know, Shaka Khaning it up while the tenors are actually belting.
When you're doing worship leading, you like the whole function of it is that it's singable to the congregation.
Right.
So even now with like virtual church and stuff, you don't want to be like throwing in riffs and like going crazy on the harmonies, or if you're lead, you don't want to go crazy on the riffs. You have to just make it easy enough for someone who's not a musician at all to be able to digest it and sing along and be able to get to a point where they aren't stressed about it. They're not thinking too hard to sing along. I think sometimes we have to get out of our own way and not make it too overcomplicated or too musical, or add on the harmonies, add on the riffs. Sometimes we just have to realize what function we're trying to provide musically with our voices. And in that case, it's pretty simple compared to maybe other things we're doing.
One of you were saying earlier, one of the guys, you know, understanding your role. You're there to make other people look good and other people sound good. And you get the joy of finding yourself in the middle of this beautiful harmony while that's happening.
It's on the spot. I mean, you're doing so many things all at once. It's just like being an instrumentalist. It's a lot of instinctual behavior. You're thinking about communication. You're thinking about, how do I sound? How does that person sound? How does the lead sound? You're thinking about all these things. These are all the instincts you have to have. And it's interesting because, like, you know, over time, when you sang with the same people, I mean, you end up sounding like, you know, perfect, because you've been communicating with each other vocally for a long period of time. Like if you're in an a cappella group, the reason why a cappella groups sound so great together, you know, the reason why it's hard to like pick and choose who you want to be in those groups, you know. And then you have, like, I don't know, Destiny's Child is a great example. I mean, I think a lot of times Kelly Rowland, like, sometimes she sounds like a lot like Beyonce in a lot of ways. Like they both of them, Michelle also. I mean, they kind of like, they became such great communicators vocally that they just almost sound like very, very much of a unit, you know. And that's what you have to do. We're doing that kind of work on the spot, like on stage, and trying to be entertaining, you know. It's a lot of what it is.
Say you're on stage the whole night, but you're not singing the whole night,
right?
You know, you're not singing words a lot of the time. You're not singing at all, you know, for half the song. And I think we have a really big responsibility to not pull focus, for sure, but like really be aware that anything we do that isn't directed at the lead singer or the guitar, if they're playing a solo, or, you know, is going to distract from the main point. So that's something that I really love to teach in coaching stage presence, you know. So you're a background singer and you're not singing. Are you drinking your water? Are you getting your hair out of your eyes? Are you looking for your friend? Are you smiling at the person on the front row? I mean, all those things are pulling focus, when really I think the best thing to do is whenever you're not singing, to definitely be focused on the lead singer or whoever's taking a solo.
I think also being aware of the other backup singer or singers you're with, because there have definitely been experiences where there's one person willing to like start the side sway and the step tap, and there's one person that's just not realizing that people next to them are moving, and you're like, oh, I can't look, and you're just like so uncomfortable. Okay, I guess if they're just doing this, I'll do this too, even though this is not like serving the song. So I think that like having that peripheral vision and not only being focused on the lead or whoever's taking the solo, but like really being a unit. And like sometimes that's designating like the person in the middle is going to start the step tap or whatever. You kind of do a quick communication and just realize like they might be the lead. Maybe their microphone is an inch further forward than the two next to, so that you guys all know what's going on.
I like things to be intentional on stage. I mean, I appreciate a balance, because music in and of itself is so unpredictable. Like, yeah, we got notes on paper, but things can change. So it is very much just living in the moment. And I'm the first one to do a nasty little step touch when the beat starts, because it does set the tone. And the experiences they vary so much, because when you're doing a show with Aubrey, for example, we're giving it all to the audience. We're all there. Like, Dave is throwing a banana, Nick is doing his nasty solo face, you know, me and Katie are over there doing our nasty little two-step, and then Aubrey is screaming. Like, sometimes the mess and the party serves the moment, but you can only do it if it serves. Like, we can't just be up here crazy just for the sake of, but if it's done with intention and it is done to make the song a thing, and everybody is also aware of it, like Jayme said, like, if we're all aware of what's happening here, then and we're all moving at the same time in the same direction, then it can be fine to connect with somebody. It can be fine to, but on the whole, you do want to start with a very nice set of stage etiquette practices. So that, it's like I said about the technique, you learn all of that so that you can forget it and live in the moment and understand where to use those tools. So that way you don't just become a textbook, but you're also not a crazy person. Like, there's a fine balance of existing and performing, because it is all a performance, you know, it is all for show, even down to the fact that you might not even feel like doing a step touch and waving at somebody, but what you're doing and whatever song you're singing, it's not necessarily for you, it's for the audience, it is for the experience. I might not necessarily like what I have to do, but I cannot act like it up here. So there is you just have to know, you just got to know the limits. You got to know where the lines are and know where to go. And and there are times where you will be given free reign. Like, artists will say, I don't necessarily care what you do, because that's a part of it. If you feel like doing a run, do the run. If you feel like doing this, do this. And then it's left to your own sensibility and your own, you know, instincts and tastes. Start with a good foundation of just being like, I don't want to pull focus. I'm here to enhance the moment.
That's right.
And even though you may not be the artist, you're still an artist, and it is very necessary to paint that picture. Like, no colors matter just as much as the other colors. So you have to know how to use the colors the right way. And now I'm talking about finger painting, so I don't know what's happening anymore.
We pretty much rehearse every night except for the weekends, and I'd say 40% of that went to choreography and 60% of that went to rehearsing your sound and being cohesive and everything. But choreography is a big part of a cappella. I think it depends on the setting as well, but definitely for the most part, having a choreography definitely adds to the visual performance, especially if you have 15, 20 people in a group. sometimes it's just kind of awkward, just like standing there and just like singing something or just like swaying like right and left. But yeah, I feel like having choreography definitely adds to that visual thing, because acapella, there's so much going on. There's so much going on dynamically and stylistically, arrangement wise. So I feel like exaggerating that even more with choreography kind of adds up to the experience.
I just want to talk about the ideal size in genres.
I love to start with 3, just so that you can always have a good chord, if ever, you know, you can just, and even if you just got somebody doubling an octave or holding down the melody while, you know, somebody takes the 3rd and 5th, you can do that as well. But 2 works, honestly, because you could still slap somebody up top and somebody down at the bottom and interchange. Counter melodies are a thing when you don't have a full-blown. There are ways to fill out the sound without having to have, and Lord knows, as much as I love gospel and a choir, I still kind of cringe a little bit when I just, like, in the middle of an award show, see the choir like slowly sauntering in the robes. Not my thing, but it is. I mean, if there's nothing more moving or powerful than a bunch of singers singing at the same time right at you. So yeah, if that's what you need, go for it. I don't know if it's necessary because you can still get a huge sound from 3 singers. It just depends on who you're picking. Like, I think that really is also what you should decide, is the kind of voice, because having 10 people could be just as effective as having 3. Especially if you know your voice well enough to be able to traverse ranges and be able to go dynamically play. But that's also why dynamics are important, because you may not necessarily need to be booming in order to get a big sound. You may not necessarily need, it is more just a sensibility thing and understanding the songs. But I think once you get past like 3 or 4, you're moving into choral territory almost. It's more of a vocal ensemble versus background vocalists. I think that's, you know, if that's the case, we a group, you know. Like, it's more so so yeah, I think you can, again, I think it's just like the quality of voice, not good or bad quality, but like the type of voice that you have that you can accomplish. Is like with me and Katie, or me and Rebecca, we are skilled enough to be able to do a bunch of things. Like, if we need to holler, we can holler. If we need to whisper, we can whisper. Some people only whisper and it's beautiful. Some people only holler and it's beautiful. Some people are only in the middle. So really, sorry, my roommate is having a great time.
But also, if you have the option, you can also do, like, if you don't have 3 more people to sing with and you only have 3 background vocalists, you could also try singing along to prelay vocals if that's an option. That definitely makes, like, I like doubling vocals when I'm recording my own songs, because I just think it kind of like makes it more like, I don't know, like solid. So I feel like in a live situation, if you want to add prelayed vocals, that's also an option.
Just in terms of background vocals, I mean, I always performed, when I performed in, you know, with my band in New York specifically, I always had a guy and a girl just on stage with me singing backup vocals. And to me, that was always just like the best blend. My buddy Josh Upton, if he's watching, he has like kind of really rich, like darker tone, and you know, I have a super bright voice, and then Sabrina just kind of brings like this really beautiful, like kind of delicate feminine sound. So it was like a really nice blend.
It's more like light and dark tones, unless you're worried about aesthetics. Like, I know women that can sing lower than me, so. And I know guys that can sing higher than me. So it's more so just whatever the vocalist sound is. If it's serving you, then pick them. And that is as far as it should go. And if it does not go if it goes farther than that, then Nick will drop my Instagram, hit me in the DM. But yeah, it's really just, the artist should be listening to what's going on around them just as much as we should. Like, it's really what is the sound that's happening? What serves it? Can you give me the dark tone? Can you give me the light tone? Can you give me vibrato on cue? Can you give me straight tone on cue? Can you do these runs with me? And can you harmonize? Do you know your note? And that is about as far as it goes.
Yeah, I think most background singers who do it a lot have a pretty wide range. And you understand, even if it's very low in my range, I understand how to place it to make it come out. And, you know, if you've been doing this for any length of time, it's because you can cover a lot.
Is there anything you guys want to add to this conversation?
I would just encourage every vocalist to get weird and make as many sounds as you can. As soon as a song starts playing, like, try and be a parrot, and then try and sound completely different. You know, learn how to blend, practice with straight tone, practice with vibrato, become a magician. You know, don't be afraid of making weird sounds. It's in the strange, you know, and the things that we never thought possible. Like, that's where you find the magic. Just make some noise. If you're a vocalist, vocalize, make it a part of your life. And, you know, all of this stuff, you know, you won't have to worry about it because it'll be in you.
You also need to practice, like, and hone your pitch accuracy skills, because there will come a time when you're in the live performance setting and you don't have in-ears and the band is really loud behind you, and you just gotta, like, trust your gut and trust the vibrations inside you that you're hitting the right notes. So I feel like in your own time, like, really mastering and honing that skill of, like, being pitch accurate, even when at times it's really hard to hear yourself. That's a really crucial skill to have as a background vocalist.
I would just emphasize any opportunity you ever have to sing a cappella, tight harmonies, take it. It's just such great ear training and will serve you in so many situations, because, you know, you're completely vulnerable and completely exposed. And for me, like, that is what's been the best training of my life, is all the a cappella stuff, because then you can apply all of that to any situation. I get teased. One of the groups I led for a long time, I used to make us sit in a room and sing all of our songs in unison over and over and over again.
Interesting.
To the point where we were not able to identify our own voices within the tone. You know, just that kind of, and I think you talked a little bit about that, JEJ. It's like you want to disappear within the ensemble, disappear within the group. And just, if you can disappear in a unison, a perfectly matched unison, what that trains you to be listening for. I think if you can match a unison, you can certainly match on a 3-part stack.
It's really just getting to know your instrument.
Right.
I was going to say, use that voice recorder app on your phone. Understand what you sound like. I've met so many singers that have no clue what they sound like and are afraid to hear their recorded selves. And it's like, what you're hearing on the inside of you is not accurately reflected. It's scientific. It is not accurately reflected on what's happening outside. So whatever sound you think you're making, no. Like, you really, and it really there's a huge, you just have to have a very special and intimate relationship with your instrument. You're walking around with it in your neck. So at any given time, you can tap into it. You can get to know it. And you have to understand fully how you sound so that you can know how to make yourself disappear in a sound. Because if you're just making a sound, you're like, I don't know how this is happening, and it just keeps happening, you're not quite familiar. You just gotta be familiar. It's a great time. Your voice is nice. It's yours. So give it a hug, you know, listen to it. It's a thing. Yes, indeed. Wash your hands first, but, you know, that's important.
All right, guys. Well, this was so informative, and thank you all for being a part of this. This was amazing.
Thank you for having us, Nick.
Thanks for having us.
Definitely, guys. And hopefully I'll see you on the other side once everything gets lifted.
Yes, indeed. I'm coming to your house anyway.
You know, just keep going and stay creative.
Thank you, guys.
Bye. Make good choices.
Good to see you.